Hey gems, and welcome back to another one of my videos. Today is me showing you everything that I made in the month of April. That's the month that we're showing you today. This was recorded at the same time as my last video. As I previously said, I recorded them at the same time, but it was just a bit too long for me, so I split it into two. And I'm super excited to share with you what I made. I'm super happy with everything I made, and I was surprised at how much I made as well. So I hope you enjoy, and just let's get into the video. There was a long period where I just wasn't crocheting at all. Like I went like 2 weeks without touching anything because I just couldn't do it. So when I was starting to feel a little bit better, I just wanted to make something simple, so I decided a granny square project would be the best solution. And so I started a project that I have been wanting to start for literally forever. If you guys remember in my what I plan to make in 2023 video, you remember I mentioned making the mom sweater from Animal Crossing, or at least I really wish I'd mentioned that. I really hope I mentioned that because I can't remember if I actually did or not, but that's what we did, ladies and gentlemen. I can't get it all on the screen because it's literally so big. It's so cool. I love this so much. The yarn that I used is the Yarnsmith chunky yarn from Wool Warehouse. I love this yarn. It's so soft and it is really chunky, and it's like a nice thickness. It's not too dense, which is really nice. Again, I don't remember if I previously mentioned this, but I had already started this project, but I had used tripled up DK yarn, and when I was working it, it was just really dense and it had no movement, and I could have blocked it, but I just didn't want to. And this is actually all granny stitches, and the granny squares are join as you go, which I have never actually done before. In my 3 years of crochet, I have never done join as you go granny squares, and I tell you what, I will never go back. It is so easy and it looks so much nicer than sewing them together, so I'm really glad I did that. And as you can see, I also did knit ribbing. Now, do have a problem. I will insert a clip somewhere of me putting this on. Now, I did the stretchy bind off method for knitting, which is the exact same way I bind it off for my cowboy vest. Tell me why I feel like my head is getting crushed when I'm putting it on. It is so tight and it has no stretch to it. Now, I thought I did it wrong. I watched the tutorial again. I did it correctly. Okay, so I don't know what I've done wrong, and I'm going to have to undo it or do something else, because quite frankly it's also quite tight on the wrists and on the waist because I did it all exactly the same. And you know, it's gonna be a shame that I'm gonna have to undo it because it's just not feasible. It gets to here and I have to like yank it down, and it hurts. And I want this to be something that I can just throw on like on top of anything. So give me some recommendations. Do I size up a hook? Do I add some increases? Do I do a different bind off method? Or Scott did suggest, like, he said to cut it, but I can't cut it because then it'll just all unravel anyway. But I was thinking about, instead of working in the round, I just worked back and forth and then added a button at the top to kind of like, because when it's on, it sits so perfectly. Like, it sits so well on my neck and it fits my neck really well, but putting it on is literally like impossible. Let me know, give me some suggestions. I am a very newbie knitter, so any tips and tricks are more than welcome. But all of that aside, this took me 11 days to make. I started it on the 14th of April and I finished it on the 25th. I really like it and I'm really proud of how it came out. The only difference between this and the mom sweater from the actual game is I added these two squares. These two are not in the original design, but in order for this to like sit how I wanted it to, I just made up those two squares. So, and it's so funny because the arms fit perfectly. Like, they are so perfect, they're so beautiful, but when you put it on, because it's so holey, it's not warm. It's not warm at all. I would need to wear like a long sleeve shirt underneath it, and it feels really weird like when the wind blows through it. But anyway, enough talking about this jumper. Okay, next up is another pattern test, and I started this way at the beginning of March and just had to put a hold on it because of, again, falling ill, and I finished it a couple days ago. And this is my Etches sweater by High and Hook on Instagram, and it is so sweet. It's this really awesome Etches sketch design, and the pattern comes with, I can't remember how many, but like a bunch of different designs, and also a blank one for you to put your own design onto, which is really cool. and I did this really cute primary colored, kind of kidcore, kind of cartoony color palette, and I love it so much. I believe this is the Hayfield bonus DK yarn. I made a t-shirt version, so my sleeves are short. I made it a bit cropped, but I tend to wear a lot of high-waisted jeans, so it looks really nice when I wear it with that, and I think it will look really cute layered under some dungarees as well. High and Hook did a really good job with this pattern. I would recommend it. If you aren't following High and Hook, you need to right now. She is such a cool crochet designer and creates some really incredible stuff, and she just deserves more recognition. So if you aren't following her on Instagram, please go on over and follow. I will put her socials and everyone else's in the description down below. Go follow everyone. This took me, now I started it on the 20th of March and I kind of stopped doing it on the 31st of March, and I literally only had the ribbing left to do. So I then picked it up again on the 20th of April and finished it on that day. So all in all, it took me 12 days to make. I love it so much. Now, I wasn't sure whether to include this piece or not because I didn't work on it much and there isn't much progression made, but I thought I'd share it with you anyway. I did pick up my bumblebee sweater for literally one day and added about 6 rows to it, but I'm getting to the point where I need to make the arm holes. So this is my bumblebee raglan, and I really love how it's coming together. These mix of yarns are so nice. I'm using the Knitcraft Everyday DK from Hobbycraft and the Leader of the Pack yarn from Hobbycraft. They're slightly different weights, but I'm using the same size hook all the way through, and it's all triple crochets, and just excited. I'm excited for it to be a nice baggy, oversized, cute little sweater. We'll see when this one gets finished, okay? It's not on my top priorities, but I thought I'd show you anyways. Okay, now onto a pretty big project. If you watched my what I made in January video, you may recognize this. I started this in January and it is a duck jumper for my partner Scott, and I finished this last night, so very fresh. Where's the... There it is. I love this, and so does he. I've been wanting to make Scott something to wear for forever, and you know, before you say it, okay, I am not worried about the sweater curse, okay? We've been together for 3 years, and I feel like we're getting to that point where, you know, a jumper isn't gonna ruin our relationship, okay? We've been through too much. You know, I didn't make it for any special occasion, so I didn't put any time pressure on myself, and he hasn't been like begging me for it, so I've had plenty of time to just sit and do it whenever I want, picking up when and when I want. I love it. I had a couple problems with the sleeve. Now, usually if I'm making a jumper for myself, I attach the sleeve directly onto the jumper and work it down. I don't make it separately and then attach it afterwards, just because that's how I prefer to work. Usually I won't make any decreases, and then when I get to the cuff, that's when I make a decrease, and it creates this nice like little puff at the end of the sleeve. But when I did that for Scott and I put it on him, it was huge. It was too big because he's got quite slim arms. He's quite slim in general, so it just wasn't working out. And so I spent a lot of time figuring out the best solution, and what I did was I decreased for the first 10 rows just by one stitch. Actually no, I decreased 10 times over 20 rows. So I decreased every other row until row 20, and then just continued down and then decreased every stitch and then did the cuff. It's still nice and baggy. It's still got a little bit of like bagginess to it. I just said baggy, but that's like the only word I can think to describe it, but it fits him a lot better and it doesn't look huge. Like, it was making him look like he had like ginormous arms. It was ridiculous. So yeah, really happy with this. This duck graph, I forgot to mention, is by Made in the Moment. This is a really awesome duck graph, and the jumper isn't their pattern, but I've made so many jumpers that I know what works for me, so I only needed the graph. And just to give a backstory on why I made this him, Scott has this t-shirt that has a little embroidered mallard on it that we got from the charity shop once. Funny story about getting the top. We went into the charity shop and we saw it, but the charity shop was only accepting cash and we didn't have any cash on us, so we hid it in the back of like the racks. We ran to an ATM. Thankfully one of us had our card on it and was able to withdraw some money, and we went back to the charity shop about 20 minutes later, fingers crossed that it was still there, and it was, and it fits him perfectly and he wears it all the time. So I was like, you know what, I will make you a matching duck jumper. I actually bought this pattern at about 3 a.m. on New Year's Day after having a couple of drinks and being like, I'm gonna make you a duck jumper, and here it is. So this yarn is actually the Women's Institute Aran yarn, which is the same yarn that I used to make my Fishy Alex jumper at the beginning of the year. I used a 4.5mm hook and it recommends a 5, so it's quite dense, but I do love this yarn. It's so soft and it is quite thick, so it keeps you really warm. I will have to block this, and I really want to block my Fishy Alex one as well, because like I said, it is quite rigid. It's quite bulky around the armpits just because of the nature of the stitch and of the yarn. And this took me, now like I said, I started this in January. I started this on the 25th of January and kind of took a little break on the 12th of February, and then picked it up again on the 22nd of April and finished it on the 30th. So all in all, it took me about 26 days to make. Now the last thing I want to show you guys before I get into the like little bits and bobs that I've made or things that I haven't quite finished yet, I want to share with you the beginning of my pattern test for Flowerick, who you may remember from my first video because I pattern tested for her Suit Sprite vest. Guys, this is my first ever knit test. This is my first time ever following a knitting pattern in general, and I'm so excited, and I'm so like happy that Flowerick trusted me to test this for her, because I am not a knitter. I literally started knitting at the beginning of this year. I couldn't pass up the opportunity, okay? Because if you also remember from my things I want to make in 2023, I said I wanted to make the Coraline jumper from the film Coraline, you know, the blue one with the stars. Flowerick actually put out a testicle for a knitted version of the Coraline jumper, and this is the back panel. This is all I've made so far, but look at how cool this is. I love it so much. Let me just show you the ribbing at the bottom. It looks so good. So let me tell you about this yarn. This yarn is actually a mixture of two different things. This is the Yarn Smith's Super Chunky from Wool Warehouse, and then this I don't actually remember the name of, but it's literally like a single strand of silver. I keep calling it tinsel, but it's like a plastic like string, whatever. And so I've paired them together and it creates this really beautiful like sparkly effect, because originally when I was planning to make the Coraline sweater, I wanted to use the Hobie Flash yarn from Hobie, but was putting it off because I'm British, like I keep saying, and it's hard for me to get that. And so when Flowerick put out this testicle, she had made hers in a really super chunky yarn, and so I was like, you know what, I've been wanting to use this super chunky yarn from Yarn Smiths for a long time, and then I was trying to figure out how to make it sparkly, because in Coraline it does have like a sparkle, like it is quite sparkly. I didn't want to buy like a super chunky sparkly yarn because that's almost impossible to buy anyway, and so I saw this really thin, almost tinsel, and I was like, you know what, I'll try it out, and it works super well. It's actually like a lot more sparkly than I thought it was going to be, but I'm so happy with it. And it's not perfect, you know, I'm not a perfect knitter. I've never had to like put my yarn on a separate hook and then work on another part. Like that was so scary to me and I almost messed it up. But so this is the back panel, and this has only taken me about 3 days. About 3 days to do so far, so I'm super happy and I'm so excited for it to be finished. It's really big. I've made it really wide, but hopefully that's fine. Hopefully it doesn't matter. And I'm using 12mm knitting needles, knitting circular needles, and I'm literally so excited. I'm making so many jumpers and it is almost summer, so that's really fun for me. But you know, once winter hits, I'm gonna have so many different options. Right, we have gotten to the end of everything that I've kind of been making, but I just wanted to show you some things that I've started making, or you know, just little bits and bobs here and there. I got really into making hats because again, they were just fast, small projects, and so I've started this pink hat. This is King Cole yarn. I can't remember the specific brand, but it's this really cute pink, white, ombre, speckledy kind of colour. It's obviously not finished, it's nowhere near finished, but this was originally going to be a baby blanket for Scott's auntie, but I just never got it finished, and the child is like maybe 1 or 2 by now, so it will be a hat when I am done. And another hat I started is this one, which is using Leader of the Pack from Hobbycraft again. It's getting there, just kind of got to do the brim, is that what it's called? But I only have this much left, so I'm a little bit worried that I will run out, and I don't really want to use another skein because I have actually unraveled another project to make this because I wasn't happy with the other project. And this yarn is a absolute bitch to unravel because it just gets so knotted so fast because it has alpaca wool in it. So using these scraps from my cowboy vest, I also made this really cute granny square bag. Again, obsessed with granny squares now. This is Join As You Go. I'm like obsessed with this color scheme. Like I love this so much. You'll see in a second like how obsessed with it I am. I don't know what it is about it. I just love the yellow and the white and the black and the blue. I'm gonna redo these straps. I made them really temporarily because I thought I was gonna wear it, and then I realized that if I did, these straps would last 2 seconds, and I also want to line it. I'm also making another granny square bag in the same color palette, but it's going to be a slightly different design. This I actually followed a tutorial by Chenda DIY on YouTube. This is her Crochet Daisy Smile tote bag tutorial, but I'm not making it the same shape, so these are all going to have smiley faces on them, which I'm really excited about. And then lastly, I have this really small start of a scarf that I was making, again because I just wanted something really simple and mindless, and I also wanted to use up some of my stash. So this is going to be a scarf eventually. Again, it might take me forever to do, but I think these colors are really cute together. I don't know what it is about it. This is like a really deep magenta pink. It's a lot darker in real life than it is on camera. And then this is like a periwinkle, and this is like a creamy cream. It's a creamy cream. It's a cream color. But this is a different type of yarn to this. I was going to use it for a jumper, but it was the wrong color. If I made a jumper using this, it would literally look like I was naked, and I'm not comfortable with that. Oh, and then the last thing that I made, which I don't have a picture of, I have a really bad video of me wearing it, so maybe I'll put that in. I made my auntie a crown because the coronation is in a couple of days, and so I made her this crown like I said, and I followed the pattern by Tales of Butterflies. I think that's what they're, yeah, Tales of Butterflies. It's a online tutorial. It was super simple, but it's really effective. A lot of the crowns that I've seen aren't very crown and this has some really nice like decals on it, so I was super happy that I found it. And my auntie found this yarn. She said she spent like £10 on it, which is kind of crazy, but it is a really cool yarn. I don't remember the brand because I took off the sleeve. It's like plastic, it's like tinsel, and it's like a tube. You can't quite tell, but it's not, it's like flat. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a really strange yarn, but it's really cool. It's really sparkly, and it was perfect for the crown. Because it is plastic, it had a lot more rigidity. It was a lot more rigid than if I was to use like acrylic yarn. So I gave it a quick steam block and it was perfect. It sat up really nice and it was really cool. Pretty cool yarn if you ask me. So that is everything that I have for you today, gems. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate you spending your time with me whilst I ramble on about crochet and knitting. And knitting this time, and knitting in the future, so maybe I should just say fiber arts instead. Like I said, I was super happy with everything I made that month, and I was super happy with how much I managed to make as well, despite being so ill and having to spend a lot of time not crafting. So it felt really good to be able to get back into it, and I'm so excited to show you what I've been up to in May, which is almost over, so that's really good. But let me know what you guys have been up to. I always like hearing the kind of things that you guys are making, and you know, giving me some inspiration for the future as well. But without further ado, have a wonderful rest of your day, night, evening, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.